tonight I'm going to be reading from my book, Arcturian Healing, An Accidental Astral Travel, A Journey to Self-Healing by yours truly, Carmen Badan. Chapter 11, Bob's Last Dance. When I woke up the next morning, I felt as though I was living in a different realm. There was a profound calmness, a sense of contentment and peace that settled deep within me. There was a sense of knowing I could only attribute to the profound wisdom shared with me during my encounter with the Arcturian Council of Elders. It felt as if the information had become encoded in my very DNA. In truth, this wisdom had always been inside of me, and it exists within all of us, hidden beneath the layers of societal conditioning and programming we've been exposed to for millennia. Our consciousness is influenced not only by the events of our own lives, but also by the collective consciousness of all beings. As we all are one and the same living substance, it is only natural that we are interconnected through the shared energies of the universe. What I didn't understand at that time is that every human being is nothing but a reflection of the cosmic universe. We are the ocean in a drop. We contain within us all the intelligence that has ever existed and will ever exist. This intelligence is mostly dormant within us, some of it by design, and most of it by the centuries of subconscious programming that humanity has been exposed to. As we gradually open our eyes and start allowing divine guidance to come in, this wisdom gets unlocked and becomes available to us, and we suddenly know things we never read about, heard about, or contemplated before. It's as if we constantly receive keys that unlock our divine code, and we shift from belief and faith into knowing beyond any doubt. My trips to Arcturus continue to be not only nourishment for my soul, but also a time to reflect and integrate the elders' guidance. As time went on, however, I felt an increased sense of longing, a quiet restlessness, almost a melancholy that I couldn't quite understand. While my encounters with Bob remained uplifting, I started to notice a shift within myself. While the world seemed to be engulfed in turmoil with darkness looming in every direction, fueled by fear and confusion, here I was, receiving divine-level intelligence, unsure what to do with this information in a world that seemed to have lost its ways. Then one evening, during what I thought would be a regular encounter with Bob, he gave me news that shook me to the core. I had just shared with him about my breakup with the man I had been dating on and off for nearly a year. Ending the relationship had been difficult because I feared the consequences of being the one to initiate it, because I feared retaliation. Deep within, without realizing, I had been holding on to a subconscious belief that put me in a state of fight or flight at the mere thought of standing up for myself. This was a pattern I had been repeating all my life, and I was determined to break it. With the help of my dear friend Virginia, a licensed hypnotherapist, I was able to pinpoint the limiting belief that had been holding me back. With her support, I mustered the courage to break free from the cycle. Sensing my vulnerability, Bob surprisingly asked me if I wanted to dance. I smiled, nodded, and stood as Bob approached me. A beautiful orchestra of violins and celestial instruments filled the space between us. I wrapped my arms around Bob's long, shimmering blue neck, and he whispered, "Close your eyes and don't open them until I say so. As we began to sway, I felt something magical happen. Bob's body started to transform under my touch. "Keep your eyes closed," he whispered again, ensuring I wouldn't spoil the moment. His form morphed completely into the one of a tall man with broad shoulders and gladiator strength. My heart skipped a beat. I could feel his muscular build between my arms and the strength of his wide chest against my face. He held me close, and it felt so nurturing, so perfectly aligned with what I needed in that moment. While we moved to the rhythm of nature's music, Bob delivered his news to me. Over the past 3 months, he had fallen in love with me. He wanted more than anything to come to Earth, to live as a human, so we could be together. Bob explained that his life on Arcturus was a choice, part of his galactic service. Yet, he had the freedom to leave Arcturus and could shift realities, transforming himself into a human being. But it came with a cost. This transformation could only happen once. By giving up his intergalactic frequency, he would be unable to return to Arcturus in this lifetime. It was a profound decision he was willing to make, but he wanted me to understand that if I chose to meet him on Earth, I would also need to accept the inevitability of never seeing him again on Arcturus. The choice was mine to make. My head was spinning, and my legs grew weak beneath me. The information was overwhelming, especially as I was processing my own surprising feelings for Bob. It may sound strange falling in love with a big blue bird, but it was undeniably true. With this confession, I realized, with a sense of desperation, that if he left, I would never see him again while I visited Arcturus. He was prepared to give up his life there, to come to Earth as a human, so we could be together as a couple. The weight of it all settled over me. He was ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for love. A flood of questions rushed through my mind. What if he leaves and we never meet on Earth? What will I do on Arcturus without him? What if this is all a test and I'm supposed to let him go because I've become dependent on him? The saying, "if you love somebody, let them go," echoed in my thoughts. I wondered if Bob's departure was part of my healing process. Our relationship had become so soothing that I'd stopped focusing on my inner journey. Maybe this was the universe pushing me to continue my path alone. As heartbreaking as the thought was, I knew deep down that I needed this. Deep down, I knew that the pain of a broken heart would challenge me and teach me love beyond attachment and trust beyond certainty. I was both thrilled by Bob's declaration of love and shocked to learn that his departure might be imminent and that our only chance of a meaningful relationship on Earth would imply that I might never see him again. I asked Bob to give me some time to process everything. I couldn't decide on the spot. For over a week, I did not return to Arcturus. I reflected, agonized, and weighed every possible outcome. No matter how deeply I pondered, the answer remained the same. I needed to let go. I needed to face my deepest fear, the fear of being alone. It was time to break free from codependency and learn to love myself fully. I had to accept that I alone was responsible for my happiness. When I finally returned to Arcturus, Bob welcomed me with a warm hug. in his giant blue wings. We took one last flight over the surreal beauty of the beloved star. When we landed, Bob spoke first, as if he knew my decision already. He told me that Rose, a gentle and kind blue bird, would be replacing him during my visits. He assured me I would love her, that she would guide me through the next phase of my healing, and he said Rose has a good sense of humor. Not as good as his, but I will love her anyway. That was the last time I saw Bob. A part of me believes he wanted to make my transition easier by sending Rose to be a comforting presence in his absence, but deep down I know he's preparing for his new human life and that soon will reunite on Earth. Though I may seem delusional, even now, the thought of running into him in the grocery store and knowing exactly who he is brings a smile to my face and fills my heart with joy. Chapter 12 of the Arcturian Healing, an accidental astral travel, a journey to self-healing by Carmen Badan. Chapter 12. My encounter with the Arcturian Healers. The year 2020 had a strange grip on my life as it did for so many others. Like many Americans, I found myself falling down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, each one stranger and more fear-inducing than the last one. On top of that, frequent conversations with people obsessed with conspiracies and politics only fueled the anxiety that was simmering within me. By February of 2021, I woke up one morning feeling a tsunami of anxiety wash over me. The truth was, I had been carrying this weight for some time now, but I hadn't fully recognized it. While I had experienced anxiety in the past, I had never been consumed by it in this way. Whatever was going on in my life, I always managed to shake it off, but this time was different. I couldn't wrap my mind around these dark and heavy emotions that I was not familiar with. To make matters worse, Bob, the one being who had been my support system for the past several months, was no longer in my life. Rose, his replacement, was lovely and sweet, just as Bob had promised. But something was missing. I couldn't connect with her the way I had with Bob, and my visits to Arcturus had become less frequent, which left me feeling more isolated than ever. That day, I knew I had to confront what was going on inside of me. I propped myself in bed with 3 pillows behind my back, just like this. I propped myself in bed with 3 pillows behind my back and asked myself a simple question. How are you feeling right now? It took several moments of self-reflection, but eventually the answer surfaced. I was afraid. I had let fear take control of my life. I had stocked my pantry with supplies in case of Armageddon. Placed a "No trespassing, violators will be prosecuted" sign on my patio door, and even bought a gun and kept it loaded in my nightstand. Fear had crept into every nook and cranny of my mind, making me feel like I was losing control. I later learned that fear has the power to make us act irrationally. Our fight or flight response kicks and we stop thinking clearly. To my dismay, I had fallen victim to fear. Fear was consuming me, clouding my thoughts, and it was paralyzing me. I had confided in a small group of people about my Arcturian experience, and one of them, during another one of those conversations about politics and conspiracies, casually asked me, "Why don't you go to Arcturus and ask for help for humanity?" For some reason, I didn't think anything of it. I had completely forgotten about free will, I had even forgotten that the elders told me that the Arcturians will not intervene in case of a disaster. And what a disaster it was. The world was in chaos. I thought, shouldn't I seek divine guidance for the planet? Deep down, I knew that wasn't the right approach. But at the time, I clearly wasn't thinking straight. That night, I decided to take a trip to Arcturus, hoping the Arcturians could help settle the turmoil we were going through. As soon as I arrived, something felt off. I instinctively realized that asking for help for humanity was a mistake. Free will meant that everyone on the planet had the right to choose for themselves. And while I might think that the world was amidst turmoil, others may find it perfectly okay. Who was I to decide for anyone else? When I approached the portal to Arcturus, I was troubled to find that I couldn't enter. For the first time in 5 months, I was denied access. My heart sunk as I realized that every thought and every intention I had was turned into by the Arcturians, just as they had told me before. In every moment, they perceived my vibrations just like a finely attuned receiver picking up on my unique frequency. My communication with them was permanently linked to the cosmic consciousness, and they had already sensed my misplaced intentions. I felt like I had ruined everything. How could I have been so careless? The council had made it clear that they would not intervene on Earth's affairs, that it was up to humanity to save itself. My actions might have jeopardized my entire relationship with them. I returned into my capsule, defeated and heartbroken. As I reached up to close the hatch, a sudden thought struck me. I need help, not for the world, for myself. I was, after all, struggling. I was consumed by fear and anxiety. I needed guidance, and I had nowhere else to turn. With renewed purpose, I opened the hatch, stood up on my seat, and raised my hand towards the sky in desperation. But I do need help! I shouted with a booming voice I didn't know I was capable of. No sooner had I sat back down and closed the hatch when a powerful mechanism latched onto my capsule with a force I couldn't comprehend. It felt as though I had been clamped by a massive crane. The next thing I knew, my capsule was being yanked upward as though I was being vacuumed into a vast unknown space. Despite the intensity of the moment, I was not afraid. In fact, I was relieved that anything was happening. Through the clear glass of my hatch, I saw that I had been brought into a large metallic silver room. It was spotless, almost like a sterile lab, with subtle decorative patterns on the walls that reminded me of steel floor plate. A ladder was propped against my capsule, and though no one told me so, I knew I was supposed to descend into the room. I followed the unspoken instructions and found myself standing in the center of the empty room. There was only one door. Suddenly, the door opened and a group of entities entered, moving gracefully in a formation in front of me. I recognized them as Arcturians. They matched the description and the images I had seen before online. Each of them wore long, periwinkle blue robes shimmering with an otherworldly glow. There were 12 of them, about my height, led by a slightly shorter being who I instinctively knew was female. Her face, like the others, had a soft bluish hue and a calm, knowing beauty that radiated peace and assurance. She stepped forward and communicated telepathically, asking me to remove all my clothes. I complied, somehow knowing that this wasn't a punishment or humiliation, it was part of their process of onboarding. She placed her hands on me, one on the front side of my body and the other one on my back side, as if mirroring each other, moving them in unison. She was taking my vitals. But this wasn't the kind of examination a doctor would perform on Earth. She was reading the entire history of my life, my traumas, my fears, my ancestral roots. She downloaded everything into their system, cataloging every physical, mental, and emotional issue I had ever experienced. I was relieved that they had chosen a female Arcturian for this task. Her touch was gentle, and being close to her felt healing in and of itself. The Arcturians truly are the healers of the universe, I thought to myself. Where are we? I asked finally, mustering the courage to speak. We are on starship Athena, hovering over Andromeda, she responded telepathically. Once the examination was complete, she signaled to another female who brought forward a periwinkle blue robe draped over her left arm. The leader gently picked it up and draped it over my shoulders. As soon as the fabric touched my skin, it molded perfectly to my body, fitting like a glove. The fashion designer in me was in awe. I had never seen fabric so exquisite, and I liked it. But the wonders weren't over yet. The leader turned and summoned me to follow, and the team turned to leave in the same formation as they came in. I noticed that none of them were walking. They were hovering above the ground. They were floating. The robes had anti-gravitational properties. Astonished, I glanced down at my feet, and I realized that I, too, was walking on air. This is how Jesus must have felt when he walked on water, I thought to myself, delighted and eager to see where the story will take me next. What an incredible turn of events, I thought, as I followed the Arcturian leaders into the starship, my heart filled with awe and anticipation. Chapter 13. Let the healing begin. I was guided into a large room bathed in soft, ethereal blue light. The room itself felt alive, resonating with interstellar tones that wove together in seamless harmony, enveloping the room with a sense of sacredness. They invited me to lie down on a med bed similar to the ones I had experienced on my first journey to Athena. The atmosphere was utterly entrancing. The gentle, flowing blue light, the tranquil hum of the music, and the perfectly comforting bed slowly put me into a state of deep relaxation. My mind started to drift, and I finally settled into a theta brainwave, the frequency known for hypnotic healing and programming of the mind. It wasn't long before the healing process began. Slowly, deliberately, I could feel different aspects of my being coming to life, as if dormant parts of my DNA were awakening. This activation revealed information that has always been present within me, merely waiting for a key to unlock it. One of the most profound revelations was the understanding that we humans operate much like computers. Just as a computer slows down when too many tabs are open, we too become weighted down when we carry unresolved traumas, fears, and other painful old stories in our subconscious mind. These open tabs make life stressful and purposeless, leading us to live in pain and suffering, often without understanding why. These tabs are our childhood traumas, deeply embedded fears, and limiting beliefs formed through old, unprocessed stories that play on repeat in the background of our minds and lives. The bulk of these programs begin at birth and continue until we reach the age of 7 or 8 years old. This period coincides with the theta brainwave state that children naturally inhabit, a state where they absorb everything unconsciously without a developed ability to process or interpret it correctly. As a result, many of the programs we absorb during this time are flawed. Take, for example, a parent arriving late to pick up their child up from school. While the parent eventually arrives, the child may develop an abandonment trauma, interpreting those moments when they are alone as evidence that they were left behind. This experience becomes ingrained in the child's subconscious and later in life directs them to attract emotionally unavailable partners. This unconscious drive seeks to fix the damage by recreating similar situations, but instead, it often perpetuates the pain. Dr. Mario Martinez, in his book, The Mind-Body Code, identifies the 3 universal wounds that most people carry: abandonment, betrayal, and shame. These wounds are at the root of much of the suffering we experience. Some individuals are affected by 1 or 2 of these wounds, while others carry all 3. It's not my intent to delve into these traumas at length in this book, as there are experts like Dr. Martinez and Dr. Gabor Mate, whose work explores these subjects in greater depth. Instead, my aim is to share how I began to heal these wounds through my work with the Arcturian Healers, in the hopes that I can share with you this very simple self-healing technique that was taught to me. There are a few ways in which we can identify our wounds, our traumas, and any other negative programming. One of the ways is by observing the patterns that repeat in our lives. Often, the people we attract and the types of relationships we find ourselves in can reveal profound truths about unresolved wounds. For instance, if we notice a pattern of choosing partners who are emotionally unavailable, it could be a reflection of abandonment trauma, which is an unmet need, or a belief rooted in a past experience, often stemming from our childhood experiences. In the same way, when someone triggers us later in life, rather than brushing it aside, we can choose to examine it with complete honesty. Often this reflection will lead us back to a moment in childhood where the root of this feeling first took hold. These patterns are the subconscious mind's way of recreating situation in hopes to finally resolve or understand, though this happens outside our conscious awareness. Another powerful method is to tune into the inner monologue that runs constantly like background music in the mind. These thoughts, often subtle yet persistent, can carry messages that we may have inherited or internalized from childhood, from relationships, or from society. This self-talk can reveal hidden beliefs that shape our actions and perceptions, like a program running silently in the background, coloring our world with old wounds. By listening to these thoughts, often judgments, fears, or doubts, we can start to identify the core beliefs that need healing. Another insightful way to identify wounds and traumas is through observing physical sensations and reactions in our body, especially in moments of stress or discomfort. The body stores emotional memories, sometimes as physical tensions or discomfort in specific areas. For instance, a tightening in the chest or stomach in certain situations may indicate stored grief or anxiety from past experiences. By paying close attention to these bodily signals and tracing them back to their origins, we can uncover hidden emotional layers waiting to be acknowledged and healed. Finally, journaling offers a profound way to explore inner wounds. When we write without filtering, letting our thoughts flow freely, suppressed emotions, memories, or beliefs often surface onto the page. This raw expression can reveal insights and patterns we may not consciously realize, providing a safe space for self-reflection and an opportunity to dialogue with parts of ourselves that have been silent for too long. By revisiting these journal entries over time, we begin to see recurring themes, thoughts, and emotions, each shedding light on the deeper layer of our psyche. Each of these methods, recognizing patterns and triggers, listening to self-talk, noticing bodily responses, and journaling, create an opening into our inner world, guiding us toward greater awareness and healing. These repetitive thought loops create unconscious behavior patterns, much like open computer tabs that slow down our mental and emotional systems, limiting our ability to reach our fullest potential. These open tabs are reflections of our unprocessed traumas, manifesting as recurring patterns in our relationships, health, and finances, and they reveal the impact unprocessed emotions and past experiences has on our existence. Each of these repeating patterns highlights part of us that long for healing and closure. As Carl Jung wisely observed, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate. Our unhealed wounds work in the background, affecting our choices, drawing in familiar dynamics, and leading us into situations that mirror our inner conflicts. These subconscious programs influence how we react and how we relate to the world, reinforcing the patterns we experience externally. And this is why it's imperative that we close these tabs within our inner algorithm to free up the mental and emotional capacity to grow, evolve, and access our fullest potential. Modern medicine has traditionally approached traumas through intense therapeutic practices such as sessions with psychologists or psychiatrists. While beneficial, these treatments are often time-intensive, costly, and sometimes fall short of addressing the deeper subconscious program still at work within us. Additionally, trauma therapy may focus on managing symptoms, while true healing requires gently uncovering and reprogramming our deep-rooted beliefs. One alternative approach to identify and release trauma involves mindful awareness. By cultivating presence, we learn to observe our thoughts without judgment, catching the repetitive loops and emotional responses that arise. Over time, this process of compassionate observation reveals the hidden layers beneath our subconscious mind, guiding us to the core wounds that seek healing. Hypnotherapy offers another approach by accessing the theta state of the subconscious mind, where limiting beliefs can be identified, removed, and replaced. However, this method often addresses issues one at a time, making the process time-consuming, costly, and reliant on finding a highly skilled and trustworthy therapist, which can sometimes be challenging. Then there's the Arcturian healing technique, which I'm about to introduce in detail. This method empowers you to take your healing into your own hands. By identifying your pain points, you can enter a self-hypnotic state to close those open mental and emotional tabs, effectively clearing stored emotional baggage and creating lasting change within. During my session on the medbed with blue light flowing through me, I felt something extraordinary. The living substance itself was flowing through my veins, filling every cell of my body with a radiant vitality. It was as if the very essence of life was merging with me, an awakening to the divine spark within. In that moment, I felt the divine call to become a soldier of the Arcturian army of healers. At that moment, I didn't fully grasp what this role entailed, but I knew I was guided by a highest presence within me. Tears of gratitude were running down my face while I lay there in awe of how fortunate I was to experience such profound healing, especially at a time when I felt like I was hitting rock bottom. The Arcturian Healers asked me to recall a past event that still haunted me, something unresolved that had left a bad taste in my mouth. Without hesitation, my mind returned to an interaction from over 25 years ago with the man I had almost married before leaving Romania for America. At the time, I was a fashion designer and had just organized my first fashion show after the fall of communism. One of the models, a friend within our social circle, began an affair with my fiancé shortly after the show. Though the affair was brief, it was devastating. She had no real interest in a relationship with him. She simply wanted to possess what I had. When my fiancé asked for forgiveness, I chose to let him go. Soon after, an opportunity arose to work on a cruise ship in America, fulfilling a lifelong dream. Although working on a cruise ship as a bar waitress without any prior experience was the hardest job I have ever had, I consider leaving Romania the best decision I've ever made in life. A few years later, I returned to Romania for a brief visit and happened to run into my ex-fiancé. We exchanged polite words, but something inside me still craved closure. My ego urged me to make him feel the impact of his betrayal. So after we parted ways, I called out his name. When he turned around, I looked him in the eye and said, "I just want to tell you, thank you." What I truly meant was, thank you for cheating on me. Thank you for ensuring that we didn't end up married, that I was freed to pursue my dreams. Looking back, I see how petty and hurtful that comment was. It didn't reflect who I am at my core. I've always aspired to be someone who learns from life and moves forward with grace. Yet that specific moment stayed with me for years. Immersed in the healing blue light on the medbed, I felt an overwhelming sense of release. I was finally ready to let go of the guilt and shame I had carried because of that unresolved chapter. I understood that true healing meant freeing myself from these heavy, unnecessary burdens, and in that realization, I felt a profound peace settle within me. That night marked the beginning of my healing journey with the Arcturian Healers. This first experience reassured me that my mission to heal past traumas was off to a promising start, a journey supported by profound wisdom and divine light. In the following 2 chapters, I will detail the fundamentals of the Arcturian healing technique as imparted to me by the Arcturian healers, and I will also demonstrate its practical application through the exploration of my initial recalled memory, which I previously described. I am deeply thankful for these teachings, which have enabled me to clear numerous unresolved issues and transcend many adverse life events. It is a privilege now to share this transformative knowledge with you.